Final Fantasy game I truly beat all the way was the remake of the 7th game. And I have been playing Final Fantasy VIII, some of Final Fantasy XIII, and actually the original Final Fantasy VII. But I haven't really beaten those. So Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy XVI are the only two Final Fantasy games that I actually completed. And what do I think about this one? Since it took a totally different approach from Final Fantasy XV, which a lot of people did not like, and the gameplay was also open world, but it was at the point where it was still not that great of a game. Some people had a lot of issues with it. I haven't personally played the 15th game, even though it seems to me like you have to go through a lot of other stuff just to get an idea of the story, like other medias, like manga, anime, and something else, just to understand Final Fantasy XV's world and its characters. But they threw all that away, focused on 16, which is a focused narrative story, and that's it. There is one thing I will mention about this game, but I'll get to that later in this review episode. So, join me as I review Final Fantasy XVI. Let's go. So 16's plot follows a young man by the name of Clive. Though we start off seeing him as an adult at first, but we do a flashback of when he was younger. He was part of a royal bloodline of nobility, but also his dad pretty much a king of this country. However, he's looked down upon by his mother, while his brother Joshua is the chosen one when it comes to the specific being called the Phoenix. Pretty much, there's a lot of stuff in this plot that has to do with these like spiritual beings inside certain people. But pretty much the Phoenix is based on this whole thing, this whole backstory. His fate is already sealed for him, and he is destined to do this specific thing. However, stuff happens in the prologue of this game that shows what happened with Clive, Joshua, and just the whole family, even his dad, and just a lot of shit happens in the beginning. With Clive's dominant, his giant, monstrous power being awakened, and a lot of bad things happen, I'll just say. But after that, we jump back to the present, where we see Clive as now forced to be like a mercenary slave. Yeah, he's forced to do all this stuff for this nation, but then he meets a girl in the midst of after fighting her, and realizes it's also a childhood friend of his from back then. Her name is Jill. She also has a power too. And that's where this plot starts to begin for Clive's journey, along with Jill. And this man by the name of Sid helps them out. He also runs this little small group that is helping those that have that tattoo on their face because they are slaves. And then after that, certain things start to reveal themselves slowly. And then we do have a bit of a time skip at a certain point, but I don't want to go into much detail after that because this is a really driven story, and it's really hard for me to explain some of it out of memory. But I will say the story is actually very enjoyable to see what's going to happen with these characters. You get attached to these characters. You want to see them succeed. Clive, Jill, Joshua, and then, of course, his dog, Torgal. You gotta love animals. And of course, the soundtrack it's decent in here. Like, there were some that were, they were fine, and then some that I actually really liked, especially when you're fighting one of the big titans of this game, which I don't want to say too much more because you will enjoy that fight, hopefully. Now, for the gameplay, I guess it would be the same as Final Fantasy XV's gameplay, except it's more of the slasher type. They ditched the whole RPG, typical RPG standards. They may add a little more of Final Fantasy VII's remake, a little speck of it. You just can't command people or switch characters for certain things. The only character you can command in this game is Torgal, your dog, or wolf, or a little bit both. But yeah, it's pretty much straightforward, hacking and slashing, but also using Clive's abilities. But I will say, there are points where you could use this giant power, the Dominant, and big giant battle with Attack on Titan. The gameplay mechanics also add something nice with Clive. He could absorb abilities from other people that have that power. and you could use those as your attack. You could also jump on the map wherever you want to go, especially when you're in the midst of the game, collecting things, mini missions, which I will say I would highly do because it gives you time to understand some other side characters that are part of the main thing as well. But they're also just fun to do, and to collect XP, because you will need some XP. Of course, there's the typical inventories. You can also unleash flame power, which is kind of like your special power to use during combat. It's pretty much just, it's all simple to know. There's not a whole lot. I mean, yeah, there's some missions you could do. You also can buy some stuff at the hideout. But pretty much, it's a straightforward game. That's all I've got to say. It is straightforward. You understand how to play the game and you're set. The only thing that you do is focus on the story, get attached to the characters, do some side missions, get some items. And yes, you do have to build up your power abilities as you absorb more of these characters' powers. When you get these powers, you do need to level them up as you progress just to make them stronger. Or you could also unlock a few other like power abilities for each power, and you can change them whenever you want. Unfortunately, there is not a lot of characters that are with you all the time. It's mostly 3 at a time, which I guess is all right. I know Final Fantasy XV had like 4 characters at the same time. But sometimes on certain missions there may be 2 others with you, so that'll make like 4 or 5. But that just depends on the mission. Of course, you had the baddies in this game, but I don't want to get too much in their characters just because they are complex and I don't want to spoil too much. I will say the voice acting is really good in this game. It is spot on. Clive did a great job. The voice actor for Clive, so engaging. Jill as well, Joshua too, even Sid. I can't really say anything else about it except that it's pretty good. It's a really decent Final Fantasy game. While it does trim back some things from previous Final Fantasies, it does hold that classic feel of the story, like Final Fantasy VII, or the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like, it has it there. Except it is, at points, open world, only in map areas. Not like Final Fantasy XV. There's also this submission where you get a chocobo, so then you could just run around the map with the chocobo.
The road will be busier up ahead.
And we'll have to keep our wits about us. Clive? Something wrong?
Nothing. It's nothing.
Well, Clive, you heard the professor. So, I'll meet you in the storeroom when you're done.
Wait, hold on!
So, Final Fantasy XVI was a very enjoyable game, but I will say it does leave a bit of more questions for how it all wraps up. However, I still think it is worth playing this game, and I would definitely say check it out. If you like Final Fantasy, you will like this game. The characters are really good. The gameplay is fun, even though it is your standard hack and slash of monsters or baddies or what have you. It is still fun. It doesn't have to be all complicated, just fun. And it is fun. And of course, I think you will enjoy the story too, since it's a gripping story. It's also complex in a sense. You just sit there acknowledging these character struggles. It is good. I really think they did a good job with this game. And hopefully we get more Final Fantasies like this. Though I do think they should maybe add a little more to more of the stuff to the gameplay. Like, I don't know, I guess how they did with the remake, switching back and forth with characters, or better yet, have a little more extra characters with you, maybe like 4 or 5, that would be kind of cool. But then again, I don't know, maybe that would be a little cheap with certain characters that are higher level and you'd just be able to beat the baddie, but I don't know. Just like the Tale series, you had like 4 or so characters and you could switch them off. Then again, I would get a bit OCD about that too, so maybe, I don't know. Maybe this was for the best. It's just a well-crafted game, and I would definitely say check it out if you are a fan. Well, I hope you enjoyed this review episode of Pop Culture Talk. If you like what you saw here, subscribe, follow me wherever you're watching. Anyways, peace.
Well, I took another risk. I snuck into the studio. I dialed in specific numbers. I had no idea what I was doing. Jumped into the portal. As long as I could find a dog in this world, I didn't care. So, I went around looking. I had to run. I had to hide from these odd, horrible creatures. But then I ran into these two. Was it a wolf? No, it couldn't be. It was a dog. So, I had to make sure. So, I snuck into the little hidey hole with my gun in hand, just in case. It wasn't like I was going to shoot anybody or anything. I wouldn't do that. I just scare people off with the gun. So, I snuck into their place, and I looked, and I found the dog. He was such a beautiful big dog. But then, he saw me as an intruder and he attacked me. He started turning into some sort of other being of power. I'm like, no. So I ran. I'm like, why? Why do the heavens not give me a dog, for crying out loud? A normal dog that won't attack me, that doesn't have magical powers, that isn't deadly. Why? When I scoured the earth of this place to every world, I can never find a dog that I just want.